everybody, and welcome to our webinar regarding B2B leaders. And we're going to talk about how to market to engineers in our session today. My name is Kohlstädt. We'll do formal introductions in a second, but I just want to welcome everybody and also welcome our panelists who are in the background, making sure that everything is happening for you, manning the chat. So you are most welcome to let us know what your questions are in the chat. And we will be running a few polls throughout our session just to get some feedback from everybody. But in the meantime, I'd love to welcome you as Shift One. Today's agenda, what we're going to talk about is we are going to talk about why we do marketing to engineers, because I'm sure many of you are in the space where some of your clients or potential clients may be engineers. We are going to help you to understand them a little bit better from a marketing perspective. We are going to help you understand how they buy. You probably know your clients much better than we do, but also how to make them buy online from you. I mean, in terms of getting to convert on social media, and then how to speak to them in terms of the right content. We're all going to talk about how to reach engineers, which channels they are on, and we will also showcase a case study from Shift One, because that's what we specialize in. We are a B2B agency, but I'll give you a little bit more information about that now. And then also talk about how to put your content plan into action. So welcome from us. We will be your hosts for this webinar. Our CEO, Kohlstädt, she founded Shift One many years ago. She is a global leader. She works in multiple locations, currently based in Germany, where we also have offices in Europe and the US and South Africa. So our clients are also global clients. And my name is Kohlstädt. I'm the strategy director for Shift One. So with that, I'm going to ask Dylan to kick the session off for us, but you are all most welcome. Please let us know your questions in the chat.
Yeah, thank you so much, Irma. So let's start off by covering why bother speaking to your engineering clients differently to the way you speak to your other audiences. So I think the main thing to understand is that most companies treat their technical audiences just like another buyer, and they don't really tailor the content or the message to the channel or to the audience to fit engineers. And so I think it's important to understand what engineers care about, how they buy, and to really know how to speak to them. So we know that engineers are key decision makers in high-value B2B purchases. Often they're the influencer, or they are the actual decision maker, or they're part of the committee. And so an engineer, when you're marketing to an engineer, and when an engineer is your audience and your customer and your end user, you need to speak to them differently than you would, for example, a B2C audience. It's more complicated. It's a lot more complicated. B2B marketing is highly specialist, which is why we specialize in B2B marketing. We specialize in technical marketing because it takes a lot of hard work and effort, and it's not as easy as B2C marketing, as you know, because you're already in the B2B space. So you need to get your approach right, and you need to take some time to really sweat the approach and to really make sure that you speak to your audiences properly, and that's going to give you a competitive advantage over your competitors. So let's talk about understanding engineers a little bit. I'll hand over to Irma. I think we're going to run our first poll. So if we can kick off our first poll, that would be great. And while that's up, Irma can potentially speak to the next slide.
Right, thank you. So let us know in the poll, what are your current biggest challenges in terms of when you market to engineers or speak to them? Because let us help you understand them a little bit better. Engineers love language that fits into their role. Remember, when we market to our stakeholders in a B2B space, they understand data. They are data-driven. They want to know technical facts. So they want to understand in terms of the role that they are being measured in. Remember that your clients have KPIs that they are measured against. So our job as marketers is to help them reach their goals. Our job as marketers is to make our clients the hero in their story. So when you speak to your clients in a language they understand and the way that they process information, that makes marketing to them so much easier. So you can just let us give us some information in the polls. What are your current challenges at the moment, and also what it is that you are battling with. Right. So when we understand how to or when we try to unpack how to understand engineers, we have to use data-driven information. They love statistics, they love facts, they love detailed information. They are highly technical, so they need proof. They absolutely need proof that your solution will help solve their problem. And they want to see specific information. They want to see your track record, the performance, or not just performance of your product or service, but also how it can help them in terms of their performance. So it needs to be evidence-based and obviously also help them to support their role, to make them successful in their role. And also they are very budget conscious. So we need to remember that all clients globally are currently experiencing pressure from budgets, and it needs to work fast. So the solution that we offer them need to be factual, it needs to work fast, it needs to be data-driven. And we obviously need to show them proof. So they have a big responsibility. Obviously, the engineers are in roles where they may be technical decision makers. So they need to analyze the solutions. They may need to, they are the people that use these solutions, but they need to often, justify to a board of executives how they can do their jobs better with our technology and our services. When I say our, I mean yours as well, right? We as marketers need to make sure they have the fact and that it is valuable to actually enhance their competence, because we need to show respect for their experience. And engineers is a highly experienced, highly knowledgeable person. So we need to provide them with accurate facts and support all of the information with technical facts. Right, so Dylan is going to talk a little bit about our personas then, or, in terms of, let me just start it off and then we'll go further from there. So when you look at your audiences, and you probably have done this exercise before, but Dylan loves this target market table and it's her strength. Talk about this table, so I'm going to hand it over to Dylan.
Yeah, I find that this is a highly beneficial exercise for you to do as a marketer. And I highly encourage you to do this with your exco and your subject matter experts, your heads of department, that you sit with each one of them and you go through their target audiences per product, per service line, for the company as a whole. You should have about 6 or 7 of these tables for each stakeholder group. And what I love to do, and what you really need to make sure that you are focusing on, is unpacking the needs by job title. So if you focus on job title, you must understand that you can't cluster the job titles together and speak to a CEO the same way you speak to the CFO, the same way you speak to your design engineer, the same way you speak to your technical engineer or an architect. You can't just cluster everyone together. So you can't make a target market table where you say, we're going after, engineering consulting companies. And who's the job title? Well, we speak to the CEO, the CFO, the COO, the head engineer, and the specialist engineers, and you clump them all together in one line. You can't do that because each of those roles have very different needs. And it's your job as a marketer to speak to each of those different roles in a way that appeals to them and to their needs. So you need to understand, what is a CEO's main needs? What is a CFO's main needs? What is a COO's? What is the head engineer's main needs? What's the specialist engineer's needs? What's the design engineer? What's the consulting engineer? Whatever different, there's lots of mechanical engineer, manufacturing, and there's lots of different engineering roles. And so it's very, very important that you as a marketer understand them and take the time to unpack that. So whether you go out on sales meetings, it's probably the best thing that you can do as a marketer is make sure that once a month you're going out on a sales meeting, that you're meeting the clients, that you're listening in, just sit fly on a wall, or that you're listening to the call center if you have call center, and you make sure that you are absolutely on top of their driving needs. And then you can unpack that by your audiences, by your personas, and create a nice persona doc for you, stick that up on the wall. And then you know that when you're creating social posts, that each of your social posts or your white papers or your downloadables or your resources absolutely speak to each audience. And so we've got this target market table as a downloadable. It's in the chat. Tyler's shared it. Thank you, Tyler. And you can just download that for yourself if you want it as a template. It's got a little how-to guide. It's got some persona templates, and you're welcome to use that. So shall we show poll number 2? Poll number 2. So about our engineers, which of these engineers' characteristics do you find most impactful in your marketing efforts? Data-driven, evidence-based, work fast, big responsibility, value, competence. So which do you find is the most impactful creating content that supports those different roles? Okay, great. Let's move on to the next section here, how engineers buy. So I think what's important to understand is a very important thing for me is really diving into this part. So understanding the process that they go through when purchasing is critical, absolutely critical. So if you haven't unpacked this for each of your different engineering audiences, you're in trouble. So it's a matter of either you can send out a poll, or you can call some of your clients, or you can just book a meeting with them, take them for a coffee, really just understand their buying process. Obviously in B2B, we've got very long buying cycles. Many of your engineers are already in long-term contracts with your competitors. And it's important that you understand that, okay, the first thing that they're going to do is they're going to do research. So they're going to look at your website and your competitor's website. It always starts with a website. And that's why when we take on a new client, the first thing we look at is the website. They look at technical publications that you've published. They also look at third-party technical publications. They go on YouTube, they look at influencer videos, they look at your videos, they look at competitor videos. If you don't have videos and you don't have content on YouTube, you are missing out. They're obviously on LinkedIn. We all know that. They look at data sheets, they're looking for companies that give them CAD drawings, make their lives easier, help them quote, give them quoting templates. If they're doing specifications, give them white, educate them. Surveys that have, many surveys and much research has been done into this audience, and it's absolutely critical to them that they are constantly learning. So we need to be, as marketers, providing them with that learning content. So you as a marketer cannot create fluff. You need to sit with your subject matter experts and to help to get the content out of them, so that you can create that heavyweight content. Obviously, then they sit with committees, or they deal with procurement, they do negotiations. But if they're happy, they're very often going to rebuy. So I think the most important thing you need to be is digitally ready. And a lot of companies that market to engineers are not digitally ready. So you need evidence-based, if you look at the poll, evidence-based content, fact-based content. Show them proven case studies, show them numbers, show them results that you have created and generated. So it's absolutely critical that you create great content on your website, and then don't assume that they're going to find it. You need to share it on social media. You need to share your content on email marketing. You need to share it as LinkedIn newsletters. You need to boost it. You need to get that content as visible as possible. You need to get your sales team to share it with customers. You need to add it as footers to your emailers. So you need to, if you've created the great content, don't assume that I have built it, they will come. That doesn't work in marketing. So being digital ready is absolutely a non-negotiable, because a lot of manufacturing companies and technical companies have neglected their digital marketing for many, many years. And that's one of the first things that we usually do when we take on a client like this, is we do a full audit on their digital, their socials, their thought leadership. Are their team posting? Should they be posting? What are they posting? So yeah, audit your content, your search visibility. It must all service the funnel, because engineers do all of the heavy lifting themselves. So they are doing all of this research online, and you have to be present there. So 72% of technical buyers spend at least half their buying process online, and we can see that that most of them are online and they want to engage online. So creating a clear funnel is important. So what's important to understand is that engineers don't go through the funnel in a linear fashion. They don't first go awareness, interest, decision, action, or whichever your funnel is that you use. They use a very non-linear pattern. They might land on your website, go to your competitors. They might go to an article. They might look at your paid ad. They might look at search. They might look at your AI recommendations. They might come back to your website. They might read a white paper. And so it's a highly convoluted multi-touch process that they go through. So the traditional buying funnel is you're going to move from awareness to consideration and purchase. But the engineering buying funnel is, research. And that research takes them all the way through your various touch points, then they do a lot of validation, then they revisit, and then when they're finally sure, they buy, because they carry a lot of responsibility on their shoulders. You know, if you're building a bridge or building specifying equipment that costs millions and millions of dollars, you can't afford to make mistakes. So I think the key takeaway is that content must be deep, credible, technical. It mustn't be salesy. So as a marketer, we mustn't be salesy. It's very important that you bring the content to your engineers. So you need to have your marketing newsletter in place, and it can't be a salesy newsletter. It must be highly informative and value-based. It must be evidence-based, case studies, performance, and numbers. And, you know, generic marketing and soft, fluffy content, you know, you're just wasting your time. So the other problem is that, you know, most brands sound the same. So how are you going to differentiate yourself? 64% of engineers are listening to podcasts. Podcasting is a huge, huge, huge opportunity, and it's actually very easy to do. Speak to us about how you can create a low cost and a low impact on the business and time podcast. It actually isn't very hard to create a podcast. You can do it. And B2B buyers are saying that brands sound the same. So you need to figure out how to differentiate. Irma, do you want to speak to us about how we speak to engineers?
Yeah, so engineers are always analyzing, always comparing facts. They always want factual, detailed information. So they don't want salesy type of post. They don't want to see discounts. They actually don't fall for the marketing hype. You know, engineers are very technical in their approach. They want to see the facts. They want to see figures. So that when you speak to them in conversation, it's always a good idea to actually speak to your clients in person, to hear the words they use and mirror their words back to them, and also listen to the questions they ask. They would often ask questions about data, about percentages, about ROI. That's often the very difficult thing for marketers in the B2B space, is to show ROI. They actually want to see, really detailed information that support their knowledge base. So they want to know that you know what it is that you're doing, right? They want to see they rather prefer data over decorative posts. So it's not so much about making your content look good to engineers. Well, that certainly helps to build your brand, but they prefer the data, the factually driven information, right? So they also want to see that you understand their role, right? They want to see that you understand their world, and they would rather prefer a wordy document that is factually based, so a downloadable document, a tool, something that is valuable to them, rather than actually just pretty pictures. So educational type of content is critical for engineering audiences. Always use their facts. Speak to them as if you are an engineer, and let the engineers in your clients' companies help you write content. They have a wealth of knowledge. Dylan always says, and I love that quote, we interview the information out of our clients. So it's your job to actually get the knowledge that they have and that they don't often put down on paper out of our clients, so that we can speak engineer to engineer. And be honest, that's where we can't make up facts. We can't promise them, make huge promises. Well, we can't do that in advertising anyway. But we use visual data, charts, graphs, infographics. They want to see what the situation is before they started using your solution versus the after, which is kind of the story brand framework. If you've ever heard about that, is where we utilize our content to tell our audience what their situation would look like before using the solution and what success would look like after using our solution.
Thanks, Irma. Yeah, so we've got another poll for you. So where engineers do research, where do you believe engineers conduct most of their product research? What is your experience? So they're going to supply websites, technical publications, YouTube, LinkedIn, independent sources. So probably all of these, I would say, is the truth. But if you could choose the most impactful one, where you have found that engineers conduct the most of their research, you can go ahead and fill that in there. That would be great. Thank you. So how are we going to reach engineers? Because engineers are doing self-research, you need to be present across multiple touch points. You can't just focus on one thing. You can't just focus on trade shows. You can't just focus on press or print ads. Yeah, as engineers are looking at all of the touch points, you have to be present on all of the touch points. But the great thing is that once you've created an asset, like a white paper or like a video, that asset lives in perpetuity. Even a podcast or even a webinar like this that you've recorded and loaded onto YouTube, it becomes an asset and it lives in perpetuity. People can find it for the rest of time unless it becomes obsolete and no longer valid. So I would say, because there's so many channels, don't spread yourself too thin if you don't have a lot of resources. Not all marketers have a lot of resources. So here we're saying websites are important and we're saying independent sources are important. And I think that's absolutely true. If you had to choose two things, I would definitely say make sure that your website is perfect, and then make sure that you've got independent parties, almost influencers, endorsing your product. So, and to that point, let's touch on the website as the first starting point. So we know that most customers now are going onto AI and they're typing into AI, make a recommendation of the top companies, this and this and that, and AI is coming back with recommendations. Some people are still going into Google and typing those, and some are doing both. And it's important that you, and as a business, turn up on page one, and that once you do rank and once your website's found on page one, you need to make sure that it's a decent website with world-class user experience, and that really represents your business and communicates what makes you different to your customers and to people who are doing research and investigation. So the first thing that we do when we take over a client is we will audit their website. It's the absolute most important thing. So it's the starting point for all sales. I call it ground zero. It's ground zero as a marketer. It's the most important thing that you can do. If you only have one thing to do, optimize your website. Make sure that it is absolutely perfect. And then you need to make sure that you've optimized it for all of your audiences and that you've got sections that appeal to all your audiences, especially if they're different. So you've done your target market table and you're speaking to 3 very diverse audiences. Create sections for them, create landing pages for them, create content for them. If I land on your website, I want to be able to see content that appeals to me. So very, very important for your website, make sure that you have the right content on your website, that, potentially create a content hub. You've got a logged in portal for extra content, a resources section, a knowledge base, something like that. Then you've got to make sure that the site is optimized for Google search or other search. ChatGPT's now launched a search engine as well. So AI optimization is a non-negotiable. You need to be very, very active with both to make sure that you have both in place. You've got to embed video. So once you've got this great website, it's very dry and dull if it's just words. The best thing to do is then to start creating some video, embed that onto each page. If it's a YouTube video and embedding it onto a page, it does help your search rankings as well. So create, and video doesn't have to be complicated to create, doesn't have to be expensive. There's low budget video options, medium budget, and then there's full sort of TV production. So don't overcook it. If you don't have a big budget, you can create video using a cell phone. It's better than nothing. And especially if it's a thought leader speaking or a subject matter expert speaking, people don't mind that the quality is not the greatest. If you're just recording it with your phone, for example, it's better than nothing. Video is extremely, extremely important. And then obviously you need to have an email sign up. Email marketing is gold. 90% of engineers subscribe at least to one newsletter. Video and demo content, 70% of technical buyers frequently watch YouTube content. And when it comes to SEO, your engineers are doing deep searches. 43% filter through at least 5 pages of search results. So they are going deep into the content. And make sure obviously that you have your case studies, your use cases, and your testimonials. So don't be overwhelmed by this list. We've got an action plan at the end of the session. Just make sure that you've allocated a little bit of time every month to working on something, or focus month 1 on content strategy, focus month 2 on SEO, on month 3 do some video, and then focus on email marketing and then create some case studies and then start the whole cycle again if it's only you sitting there and doing all the work. But yeah, 58% of technical buyers are using generative AI in the buying process, and 43% of engineers say they filter through at least 5 pages. And engineers are twice as likely to view a strong website as an indicator of quality than a trade show or a sponsorship. So if you think that that trade shows are okay and enough, and you don't have to invest in your website, not the case. Website's more important than trade shows. But trade shows are important. I'm going to ask Irma to speak a little bit about trade shows.
So I don't know if any of you still exhibit at trade shows or attend trade shows, but they are expensive. So if you do invest in exhibiting at a trade show or even attending as an attendee, there are many tips and tricks how we can utilize your digital channels to actually maximize the impact of your trade shows. So we should bring the engineers, right? Skip the sales pitches, and that's who people want to talk to. So attendees of trade shows where you will be exhibiting or attending, they want to actually speak to the knowledgeable people. So it's not just about the actual event on its own, because we know there's a lot involved in terms of your exhibition stand and producing all of that material. But there's also a strategy where you can use your digital channels to, before the event, to connect on LinkedIn with potential audiences, and also during the event, because remember those attendees, you can just skip to the next section, please, or just there we go. Thank you very much. So utilize all of the channels that the audiences will use to know more about the trade show. And so we often forget about the actual leading up to the event. Start connecting with the right people on LinkedIn. Let them know you will be at the event. To brief your team or brief the team who will attend the event in terms of not just focusing on sales, but building relationships. And yes, it's obviously about having material already, but also those people at the conference or the trade show are using their mobiles while they're there. They will go and find your social media platforms while the engineers are maybe facilitating a workshop on stage if there are presentations at the trade show, or they will go and find them online. So if you proactively, pre and during the event, engage with where the attendees are, where your potential clients are, it enhances or it contributes to the success of your trade show. Just the next section, please. You can also then, during the show, at the event, make sure that you don't just speak, show. So have, a laptop open with a screen recording if you have a SaaS product or a digital product that you are selling. Make sure that you have QR codes. So that's where online and offline meets, where we close the gap in terms of all of our touch points. And QR codes actually made a huge comeback recently. QR codes took a bit of a dive after they were launched initially. QR codes are big right now. And that's where we bridge that gap, where we immediately, while the person is in front of you, give them an opportunity to quickly scan a QR code and start connecting with them. Because it's not just about getting them to complete a form, but it's also getting them to engage with your platforms, getting them to your website. After the event, connecting with them again, because those touch points increase. If you've met with someone at your trade show exhibition, exchange details, connected with them on LinkedIn, it's so much easier to reach out to them after the event than just a cold email blast, because they won't probably remember which of the exhibitions they visited. So that's where we can make little notes about something you spoke about with this person at the event, send them an email message on LinkedIn. Keep those leads warm and build relationships supported by your email list. Analyze the data, segment your audiences. Not everybody will fall in the same category. And that's where your CRM tools and even tools like High Level, which we specialize in at Shift One, we build really great nurturing funnels where we bridge the gap between online and offline and nurture our clients through the process. So reach out to us if you would love us to help you with that. So trade shows are great, right? Engineers love face-to-face interaction. They love speaking to a human being, right? That's why that's valuable. It's not about the technology and the fancy gadgets. It's really about teaching them about your technology and help them solve a problem, right? So it's not the giveaways, right? I think you can probably cut your budget because those giveaways are probably going to land up somewhere in a drawer, or if it's fancy gadgets given to their children, right? So it's more valuable to invest in the relationship, valuable, detailed relationships with information to your audiences. And that brings us to the content strategy part. Sorry, Dylan, did you want to add anything about trade shows?
I think just to say 72% of engineers visit at least one trade show a year. And I do think trade shows are powerful and important, but you need the right team on the stand, and you need a stand strategy, because I've been to trade shows and I've had clients running trade shows, and it can be a very on the back foot, passive, reactive, strategy where it's hard for people to come in and engage with the people. You feel intimidated. It's not a welcoming environment. The staff are just standing there talking to each other. There's no incentive for me as a customer to come on board, or as a prospect to come and ask questions. So you need a trade show strategy, and you need to work with an agency that really understands sales, human psychology, engineering psychology, and create a strategy for your trade shows, because like Omar said, they're very expensive, and you need to make them work for you. And a lot of people do trade shows and they actually don't have anything to show for it at the end of the day. Irma, do you want to talk us through content strategy?
Yeah, so now it brings us to how do we produce relevant content based on everything that we've spoken about. Now you'll see on the screen, and by the way, that is a fantastic example. These percentages and the facts that we show you in between our presentation, that's great little tidbits of information, the type of language we use for engineers. They want to see factual information with data and numbers. So 68% of B2B executives have increased their consumption of thought leadership. What is thought leadership? Thought leadership is helpful, useful, valuable information because it helps with credibility. Now, this image is very busy. It's one of our favorites when we use content strategy planning. So I know that the left brain, right brain debate has been going on, whether it's scientifically correct or not. Please just look past that. But in essence, there are two types of usually broad categories of how people process information. And engineers are typically what we would traditionally call a little bit more left-brained. As we've mentioned earlier, they are analytical, fact-driven. So the type of content that will appeal to them when they scroll through a news feed is data, percentages, charts, graphs, infographics, comparing information. This is the result before our solution. This is the result after our solution. They want to see case studies, proof. They want to see who the clients are that you've been working with. So everything on the left-hand side of this image is the type of information that an analytical person with, quantitative abilities to analyze data, factual data, that's the type of information that that will make them stop scrolling and read your data, and it will make them click to read more. Just briefly, on the right-hand side of the image is people who are typically more in marketing roles. In HR roles, they are more, human-centered. They love pretty pictures. They love people type of content. Well, I'm not saying you should focus on either or. It's a healthy blend of the types of information that we give our audiences. But typically, engineers want a quantitative type of information that they can verify and where they can see facts rather than just the pretty pictures and the branded content.
Yeah, and if I can also just jump in here, we're not saying engineers don't have feelings. We're saying speak to them with logic first and facts. And then if you're using remarketing, and I know that this engineer or this audience has engaged with this piece of factual content, I can make sure that the next piece of content they see builds on what they've seen. And then I can make sure that the next piece of content they see is potentially something a little softer, maybe a bit more focused on the right side of the brain. There's a lot of really good things in here that form an emotional connection and relationship with our audiences, because our audiences they're not machines, and they are people, and they do want to have a relationship. Many of them do want to have a relationship with their suppliers, and many of them are very loyal. So once you've spoken the facts and the data, and you've always got to bring the facts and the data in, you also just have to understand that they are human beings at the end of the day, and sort of mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, so in terms of your content strategy, then going forward, this is where product reviews, the majority of technical buyers or engineers, 60% of them believe product reviews are most valuable. That's why we asked the question earlier in the poll, where do you think engineers do their research? But also not only engineers, but all executives. They consider thought leadership crucial for evaluating potential advisors. And it's as high as 90% of senior executives. And that's a really big increase since the type of content produced or analyzed from 2023. So
Yeah.
when you...
Sorry,
no,
Irma.
no, go ahead.
If I can just jump in here just to say that this is where your CEO and your heads of department come in. This is where it's important that, you work with them to encourage them to create content as individuals on LinkedIn, on their personal, professional profiles on LinkedIn, not on the company profile. So you're creating great content on the branded profile, but it's very important that your subject matter experts are also active. And that's the challenge, because they need to have training, they need to understand. And very often it's best if, you create the content for them, or you work with an agency. Like we create a lot of our CEO content for our clients, because they're not subject matter, they're subject matter experts, but they're not social experts or channel experts, and they may feel a little bit cringe doing it. So it's easy if a third party does it. So very, very important is that you start warming up your executives to this, that they need to start becoming active with AI search. This is one of the most important factors when it comes to ranking in AI, is to have a very active strategy there. Sorry, Irma, did you want to say something more on the subject?
I just wanted to add something in there that's very important too, Dylan. You mentioned it earlier. So we spoke about the types of content, factual, and data. But it's very important for an engineer to have face-to-face interaction. And that's where the human elements come in with thought leadership type of content, where we showcase the experts, where they can actually see the real human beings that they will be dealing with, or the real human beings who develop the solution that they are looking for, and showcase the expertise as a representative of the company. So thought leadership is bridging the gap between the factual content and the human element in terms of that.
Absolutely. And always remember, as we always say in all our webinars, people buy from people, and people don't necessarily trust brand content as much as they trust individual content. So we cannot emphasize this more enough. So having a decent thought leadership strategy, I think, is very, very important for the next year and for the future. Okay, let's quickly dive into some channel strategies, because we've talked a lot and spent a lot of time speaking about the type of content you should be creating. And now you're saying, yes, but where should we be? And obviously LinkedIn is your number one channel for B2B. That's possibly the most important channel when it comes to engineers. But you have to understand that they are also very much on email. So they want to receive valuable emails, but because they get a lot of emails, because there are a lot of people emailing them, everyone is emailing everyone. And I get 100 emails a day from people trying to sell me something. So your emails have to be very carefully crafted. They have to be consistent, and you have to keep it up. But email is very, very important. And then when you combine everything together, so you're using LinkedIn Navigator. If you're doing lead generation, you've got content being created as a brand and as individuals, you're creating video, and you mix everything together. Plus you create some paid campaigns. Maybe you're doing some omni-channel campaigns today. You get landing pages, and you've got Google search ads, and you've got mass linked email going out. You've got LinkedIn content going out. You've got downloadables going out. You're doing talks. You're doing articles. You're getting articles picked up in press. It all works together to create this very, very dynamic space where people start to take note of your brand. And it takes a while to convince engineers, because they are not people who are easily duped. So you need to show up consistently at that level for sometimes 6 months, sometimes 8 months, sometimes a year before an engineer might pivot their opinion. So obviously LinkedIn generates 80% of B2B leads from social media when you're looking at a lead generation strategy. But I think the main thing to consider is, obviously, let's start with your goals. So let's run a quick poll for you, asking about your marketing goals. What is your primary goal for improving your marketing to engineers? So increase lead generation, brand reputation, website engagement, content effectiveness, or trade show impact. So if you can just fill out your marketing goals. If you are a freelancer or an agency, you need to work with your company and your clients to understand their goals. And if you are a marketer at a firm that markets to engineers, you need to make sure that you are very clear on your marketing goals or your digital marketing goals. Or if you're a social media marketer, what are your social media goals? If you're a sales person, what are your sales goals? If you're a whatever your role is, you need to make sure that you understand very, very clearly what your expectations are. So, and make sure you've put numbers to them. So you all know what SMART stands for. If you don't, Google it, put it in ChatGPT and unpack really, really smart metrics that are measurable, because there's nothing more powerful than numbers. And if you're sitting in a meeting and trying to justify the marketing and you've got numbers to back it up, you then have a very strong case moving forward. So once you've decided what your goals are and you looked at your audiences, you really unpacked them, then you create your channel strategy. You don't just come out the starting blocks with the channel strategy. You always start with what are we trying to achieve? Who are we trying to reach? Where are they? What are their needs? Okay, since they are active on these channels, those are the channels that we're going to be active on. So you might look at one of the things that we offer is mass cold outreach. We offer account-based marketing outreach, automated mails going out from websites. Here we can see that content effectiveness is the number one goal, and then lead generation is the second goal. And content effectiveness obviously supports the lead generation process. So that's absolutely spot on, I think. So you need to create great content. You need to mix in some paid ads. You need to run some events, maybe webinars, some podcasts. Maybe you've got landing pages, and you definitely need decent tracking in place, because it all comes down to the analysis. Analytics, the numbers, and the tracking. Very, very, very important. That you've got that in place. And just quickly to say that, sales and marketing need to work together. We've discussed this a few times in some of our previous webinars, but, it's very important that marketing supports sales and that sales works with marketing, and that the two don't fight together. Because I often find that the two enemies in the company are sales and marketing for some crazy reason. There's this crazy competition going, and the two should work together. So definitely identify the companies that you are targeting. We're moving towards account-based marketing. You should know the 50, 100, 500, but it's best to keep it really small. And as Irma was talking about social selling, you warm them up on LinkedIn, you really follow their content, you really engage with them, you really understand them. And so let's move towards an account-based marketing approach. Create personalized, targeted campaigns targeting these people gets you a much better result than sort of mass campaigns. 97% of marketers achieve a higher ROI with account-based marketing than using other strategies. So very important that you've got great tools. Tyler has shared the link to High Level, which is the all-in-one, absolutely simple to use, very cost-effective platform. We actually are a reseller, and if you go to our website and sign up to our High Level profile, you will get it at, I think, a third of the price than if you go directly. But High Level gives you the ability to go and track all of your opportunities that you've got. It's a full single view of the customer, single view of sales, absolute transparency. And as marketers, if you're responsible for lead generation, we need to know from our clients how many leads they've got sitting in the pipeline that they haven't followed up on, because their sales team impacts our data and our results. So very important that you've got decent tracking in place. Auto mailers going out, depending on the different industries. From your website, you can shoot off different automated sales follow-up emails, different workflows. And that's definitely something that we now, as a business, all of our clients get High Level implemented with automated sales mailers going out, because we just don't trust the sales teams. Very rare that we have a client with an amazing sales team that really is just following up on the sales without any prompts needed. So even for us as a business, go and sign up to our form just as a test, and you'll see High Level mails coming to you. The automations that mean that I don't have to be following up personally, or my sales team. We know that the mailers are going out and that it's automated. So very, very important to have decent data tools and technology. I'm going to ask Irma to speak briefly about that.
So data and analytics is actually the fuel that drives marketing. You can't make informed decisions in terms of what is working, what is not, where should you invest your marketing spend if you are not analyzing your results. So any marketing team that you may work with and in your organization should be tracking not just ROI, but return on your marketing spend. And we can only do that by actually understanding in this complex multi-touch journey with our audiences, which of those channels are contributing and which should be attributed with getting the conversions to happen. You can only understand where to invest your marketing spend if you understand the attribution process. And that's where we use tools like AI. There are many AI capabilities built into very simple tools like Google Analytics. Very few people know that, very few people use that, but that's the power of AI, where it can help unpack trends or gaps in your data that you may overlook or that you may have not spotted yet proactively. And that's where predictive analytics help us to predict trends based on historic performance and also where to the marketing spend, right? Because we've seen that with our clients, where businesses using advanced analytics are almost 3 times more likely to exceed in terms of reaching their marketing goals. Now, there are many tools out there. We use a specific set of tools on the screen recording that you see right now. That's also from a high level, is where you can actually at a glance, setting up the right dashboards, track the metrics that are most important to you. So think about your data sources. Which data sources are you currently using? Is it social media, paid ads, Google Analytics? But it should be visible in a dashboard like the one that you see on screen so that you can at a glance know which channels are contributing to the success of your digital marketing. So if you really don't know what the success of your efforts look like right now, it's a to-do on your list for after this session to go and find the data.
Yeah, data can be quite overwhelming. I think you need to know which questions you want to answer before you even start looking at the data. And I think if you start to create case studies for yourself, it will help you to unpack and to present back to the business the effectiveness of the campaigns. And remember that everything isn't always about sales and leads, but that very often, especially when you're starting out, it's about brand awareness, it's about creating trust, it's about creating visibility. Sales and leads starts to follow. And sometimes, you know, the business can be quite aggressive. Where are the results? Where are the results? Where are the results? But what you're busy doing is you're busy creating that pipeline. You're busy creating that funnel. You're just starting out, and everybody needs to be patient. It can take time. So here's just an example of a campaign that we put together for a client in the energy space. They were looking at creating a pipeline. They had an event. They also wanted to drive. They also wanted to drive lead generation, brand awareness. So we put together an omni-channel campaign for the clients where we looked at obviously a strong focus on lead generation appointment setting, but we had full attribution tracking set up to measure throughout the funnel, and we had interventions throughout the funnel from the top, middle, bottom, and very, very bottom of the funnel, including remarketing in place. So we had at the top of funnel, we had some Google search, YouTube ads, meta ads. We had some cold email outreach, because you might say, no, you know, are our audiences on Facebook? You know, they may or they may not be. But we have found that a lot of case senior decision makers are on Facebook, they are on Instagram, and we get good results when mixing that in. We also did mass cold outreach as well as email outreach to their existing audiences. In terms of the middle of the funnel, we created landing pages, social media content, organic, warm email outreach, remarketing ads. Bottom of the funnel, YouTube search ads, meta, more cold outreach. And then in terms of the engagement, we did win and spin competition, loyalty cards, and we had a calendar, and we were driving very strongly to an event. So what were the results? We had nearly 8,000 win and spin engagements. We booked 68 appointments in 3 weeks, roughly 50,000 visits to the landing page, 443% uplift, ROAS of 5.6, and a ROMI of 460. So basically for every $1 spent, we generated $5.6 in revenue, and the campaign returned 460% profit on the marketing spend. That's how you interpret those numbers. So very, very effective campaign for that client. We also have an electronics client that we also did some work for, also multi-channel, also with landing pages, downloadables, using LinkedIn, Google Ads, and putting a whole mix together from a landing page, LinkedIn ads, email marketing, social media, Google Ads, the whole shebang. Also, over the course of 7 weeks, we had very, very effective results, 72 high quality leads, 36 leads from LinkedIn, 24 from Google, etc., going down the funnel. And they've had a phenomenal sales as well, in the millions from that campaign. So definitely paying for itself. Irma, I'll ask you to take the next slide.
So now to put all of this into action, so we created a little grid, a little action plan for you. So on the next slide, you will see that you can maybe take a quick photo if you want to. How do we put this into action? The very first step is always to understand your audiences, even if you need to do surveys or go back to the drawing board with your persona documents or your target market table, and then create the right content. That is ongoing. So the right content may change depending on the trends in the market. So we use external third-party data and first-party data to understand what type of content works with our audiences. But it always starts with the website. So your first immediate action, like Dylan said earlier in our session today, is go and make sure that your website is the place where they can find the right information and take action and convert. It's actually ongoing, but that's one of your very first priority tasks. Then an optimized site in terms of SEO, which you know is a long-term result, should also then, once you've completed your audit, continue for the months to come, because your results are often not immediate in terms of SEO. And then you need to build trust, right? So that's where testimonials, reviews, it takes time to build them up. So you'll probably not start to produce testimonials or reviews in month 1, but ask your audience. Remember that you always need to give them a clear call to action. If you want them to give you a review, ask them for a review. Your audiences won't automatically know what it is that you want them to do. So throughout your action plan and in your content planning, make sure you have strong calls to actions. Video will take a bit longer to create, and that's probably something that will start kicking off from month 3 onwards. Remember that you can also create video content from static images, stitch them together as a slideshow, upload it as an MP4. It's very quick and easy, and the platforms recognize that as a video file. And lastly, it's ways, measuring, testing, optimizing. It's an ongoing process, because what works now, what is trending now, may not work or trend in 6 months. So you always need to keep your finger on the pulse in terms of what is getting your audiences to engage and convert. What are the external factors, economic factors, global impact that it may have on the behavior of your audiences and your online platforms? And it's rinse and repeat constantly. So this is not a once-off process. It's actually an ongoing process in terms of your content planning. Anything to add there, Dylan?
No, I think just create a good plan for yourself and make sure that you've created one asset a month at a minimum. I think if a lot of our marketing clients sit in meetings all day and they don't have time to do the work themselves. And so they engage with us to do the graphic design, the social media, the article writing, the website, the videos, the campaigns, because it's extremely, extremely time consuming. But if you have to do it all yourself, you just need to divide and conquer and also communicate very clearly upwards how much capacity you do have, and just create a plan for yourself and stick to it. So yeah, just in closing to reiterate, engineers are self-researchers and you have to meet them where they are. Technical credibility is your currency. Content, website, channel strategy matter more than marketing fluff. There's a non-linear funnel, which means continuous presence, and you need to add value at every touch point. You need to make sure you're measuring the right things. So keep iterating and refining. And I think it's really important that you understand marketing to engineers is different, but it's not impossible. So with the right approach, focusing on trust and value, you can win over technically oriented decision makers. It's just, you need to be very, very clear on who they are and what their needs are. Are there any questions? If anybody's got any questions, you're welcome to just post them in the chat right now. And then while we're waiting for the questions, we'll share our free marketing cheat sheet, which is a guide to marketing engineers and marketing to engineers. And if you don't manage to open the QR code, then you can visit our website. We have a full resources section with a lot of very cool downloadables, marketing industrial products, marketing. The target market table is there, and there's a whole bunch of video as well, and lots of downloadables. So do visit our website and check out our resources section. And also we encourage you to subscribe to our channels, follow us, follow Irma and myself on LinkedIn. And the reason you're following us is to see how we are speaking to our audiences, how we market ourselves as thought leaders. I think it's really important that you stand on the shoulders of giants. So I like to call it standing on the shoulders of giants instead of copying. But you can just call it copying if you like. But until that point, you know, fake it till you make it. To find somebody in your industry that's doing really great content and use that as inspiration to get started. So there's Irma and my LinkedIn profiles. Do connect with us and do reach out if you do need anything from us. We have a team of subject matter experts standing by to support you with your goals and to help you to market to engineers. I want to thank my panel. I want to thank Irma, as always, for being an incredibly powerful co-partner. Irma, for those of you who don't know, is also heading up the Digital Marketing Academy, where we teach everything that Shift One practices. So what Shift One lives on a day-to-day basis, Irma teaches on a day-to-day basis as well. So do reach out if you want some training, whether it's AI training for marketers or for Exco, whether it's LinkedIn for Exco, whether it's social media, digital marketing, email marketing, whatever the case might be, reach out and we can book a training course for you as well. But thank you as well to Susan, Tyler, and Alzan for making all of this happen. And thanks to you for joining us. And please do reach out if you have any comments or topics for the next session, and we'll see you on the next webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dylan. Thanks everybody for joining.